Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to our Sunday morning roundtable. We are recording from the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent in Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America. This morning is Sunday, September 17th, 2017. And this morning, Suzanne will give us our morning prayer.
Mrs. Eddy's prayer given at the Massachusetts Metaphysical College. Oh my God, I offer as a consecrated gift upon thine altar a heart dedicated to thy service, lips speaking only words of charity, love, and truth, thoughts striving to be only the true thoughts of the mind of God. Help me to endure unto the end, strong in the faith, powerful in the truth, all the influence that I can bring to bear, all the force of tongue or pen that is mine, I offer in thy service. May heaven help, consecrate, and accept.
And miscellaneous writings. We today in this classroom are enough to convert the world if we are of one mind. For then the whole world will feel the influence of this mind, as when the earth was without form, and mind spake, and the form appeared. Now that first prayer is a prayer any of you can say at times, especially if you feel like your inspiration is getting dim. Let it well up inside you, our consecrated service to God. It's a beautiful prayer. I'm very grateful that Arthur found it for us. And so let's see, for next week, any volunteers, or shall I just... How about you, Frances? Oh, no, she's not here, is she? No. Okay, sorry. Wouldn't you know? Okay. How about you, Fairley? You read the prayer next Sunday.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
I'm not sure where to find prayer.
In the Love is a Liberator, the May 2017, the Raise the Dead issue. Okay? That's where you'll find it. Okay, this morning, subject is matter. Golden text, Psalm 114:7. Tremble thou the earth at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob. So we'll just mention a few things in the Bible. We thank you, Suzanne, for our Bible study yesterday, and also Mike the week before. Okay, both Gary and Suzanne wrote about this on the forum. Would you like to say anything, or anyone, on the golden text?
So when it says, tremble thou earth, I took that to mean all earthly beliefs, all material sense observations, all erroneous beliefs. And they are cowards in the face of the truth. When you confront an error with the truth, it trembles and it runs. It may fight for a second, but it will tremble and run.
Thank you.
I thought that this was a wonderful treatment for the current state of affairs on this planet, whether it be extreme weather or other disturbances.
Yes. Excellent. Just and to, again, keep these in your arsenal, just to rebuke. I think it was written on there, rebuke to materialism. Rebuke it. Arthens, and probably all of you already know this, but, I mean, he knows for a fact that nations do work to manipulate weather. They send particles up into the ionosphere that a lot of these strange things that have been happening in our world are man-made, so to speak. And we as scientists, Christian scientists, know that it is only the one science, supreme science, and we know the nothingness of matter, and we can rebuke this, and we should be doing it continually. All kinds of things are done in the name of warfare. I mean, this is the type of warfare. So we won't be dismayed. We won't be shocked. We won't be moved by it, but we will work to know its utter nothingness. Anyone who is on that side of material science is under the delusion that the universe, including man, is what?
Evolved from an atomic force.
It is a delusion. Now, I'm sure they think what I am saying is delusional, but I don't care. Because as we talked about yesterday, we know the truth, and we can prove the truth, and Christ Jesus proved that truth, didn't he?
Sure.
So anyone else want to say anything about that?
I would. I think this is called geoengineering. And every time you see in the sky, you see them more and more and more, and they're now captured even in photographs. It looks like a plane, and it has a long stripe behind it, a white stripe. And it's going on more and more. I know there are people in Vermont saying, we've got planes going up here. So they're doing it all over. When we see those stripes in the air, yes, right away we can know what? We can know that God is the only power, and this geoengineering is powerless to alter God's perfect creation.
I think just like Mrs. Eddy tells us to stick to the truth of being no matter what's going on, when we see these things, we can know that perfection is the law to this earth.
Thank you. This is our responsibility as Christian scientists. You don't just walk through life thinking whatever or thinking that ignorance is bliss. You have to be aware of what's going on. Years ago, Mrs. Evans would tell us about ELF waves, which is basically what I was just saying, where you send particles through the atmosphere to cause certain results. It's been going on a long time, and it's all kinds of science is going on, as most of you know. But the only one science is Christian science. It has to have the Christian in front of it, and why is that?
Science of Christ, living Christ.
The living Christ, and it is a compassionate science. It's based on love.
It is the law of
all-knowing science.
Yeah. Because perfect love, divine love, is the fulfilling of the law. That is where all the power is. All of this stuff that Mary's talking about is really experimentation. It's human experimentation with, material particles with wavelength and stuff like that. It's experimentation. And it was through that kind of experimentation and reasoning that Albert Einstein realized that Christian science was the ultimate science. That's why Mrs. Eddy says physics is slowly yielding to metaphysics. Human thought is changing. It is improving. That is the truth. And that is why we are doing what we're doing. Bringing that positive, correct change to the world.
Hey, Ed and then Trish, interesting experience after it was brought up. I think first on a Wednesday night testimony meeting, but then also to handle the hurricanes as mental malpractice and animal magnetism. When I started working more in that line, I have to say that I kind of crashed, and I realized through all that it wasn't handling it with divine power. I was using too much personality or whatever one wants to call it, and just proves to me exactly what you're saying, that it really is that animal magnetism that's behind all this extreme weather, etc. And the only way to handle it is with divine, which I need to become better at. But thanks for the constant reminders.
You're welcome, Mike. And how do you become better at anything?
Working on it.
Knowing it's all from God.
Yes. Yes. Getting yourself out of the way and letting God use you. But it does take work and practice. It doesn't necessarily just happen.
You know what helped me recently, yesterday's Bible study? That if you're breaking God's law, you're disobeying them. And you're living a lie. If I remember those two things, I don't want to do that.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm glad you got that point. That's what that meant to me, too. I will have Jeremy post that, maybe even on a forum or a bulletin board or something. It was something from Watches, Prayers, and Arguments we talked about yesterday, which said when you accept a lie, any lie, you're sick, you're discouraged, that's sinning. You're agreeing with the devil. You're making a reality of it, and a sin. The sin is what has to be healed. That tendency to think that way, to accept those thoughts, that has to be destroyed. You get better at it as you practice it. It's like tennis. You smack it across the net fast. Don't let it get lodged within your thought. Dwell on it.
You can't rely on somebody else to do it for you.
Yes.
I'm also recognizing that that's what Mrs. Eddy means by you can't practice Christian Science wrongly, because quickly learning that every time I practice it wrongly, then I suffer, from a belief, physical, whatever, symptoms or whatever, and I'm becoming much more aware of that and trying to catch it earlier and earlier and just keep the mental thoughts on the divine versus falling into that material sense.
Thank you, Mike. That's a wonderful thing as you progress. When you start to practice it wrongly, or when you start thinking wrongly, usually it's an instant reply. You get them right away, you'll get something. That's a good thing. That's a wake-up. You're getting off the straight and narrow. Get back on it. I think it probably happened before. Maybe you just weren't so aware of it. But now you've become aware of it. You feel the uneasiness. You feel whether it's physical or mental or emotional, you get some warning. You're not back. You need to get back in line with Christ and with watching your thoughts.
If you think you're practicing it wrongly, you're not practicing it at all.
Right.
Mrs. Eddy says adulterated science is void.
Yes.
I think also in the before Christian Science, my life was constant misery, so it was all normal. And once you start breaking through that and start having those first you have little spells of joy, and then you start learning that that's what's happening.
Yes, the other is abnormal. It's not natural. It's not natural to feel sick or discouraged or jealous or any of those things. It's abnormal. And so you don't want to stay there. You get yourself back on track. It also is wonderful, too, because it proves you cannot misuse this science, really. If anyone thinks they can take this science and misuse it, they got another thing coming. My understanding, that's a sin against the Holy Ghost, which there's no forgiveness for. So, cannot misuse it. It's a great safety. So anyone who thinks they can take something so wonderful for science and misuse it, turn it against other people, or use it selfishly, or a lot of different things, it's not going to work. Depending on how bad your motive is, you will suffer. So, now I'd like to also go to Isaiah 31, it's citation 2, which Betty and Suzanne wrote about on the forum. Betty, do you have it there to read? If not, Mary, go ahead.
Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Now the Egyptians are men, and not God, and their horses flesh, and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is holpen shall fall down, and they all shall fail together.
Okay, and keep going, because actually it was the next one they wrote about. Habakkuk, go ahead. What prophet?
Habakkuk. Oh, okay, Habakkuk. What profiteth the graven image, that the maker thereof hath graven it? The molten image, and a teacher of lies, that the maker of his work trusteth therein, to make dumb idols. Woe unto him that saith to the wood, Awake! To the dumb stone, Arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is laid over with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all in the midst of it. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him.
Betty there?
Yeah, I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay, Betty, what did you write about that? It was good.
I've got it on here. I did the first. I did the verse 18 and 19 that he just read, and I said, when I first read these two verses, I laughed out loud and thought, how dumb can you be to make an idol out of wood or stone, paint it, and then expect it to talk to you? Then I realized how often I have made some idol in thought and painted it with gold, etc. It could be something I did that I was proud of, or some person like a child or a husband, or politics, the environment, materia medica, or some other such thing, and then expected it to help me or make me happy. It is good to laugh at error, mortal mind, matter, and see how stupid it is to make it real and worship it, and then complain that it doesn't help me or make me happy. So important to stay focused on God and our relationship to him, as is taught in this church, so we can remember, quote, the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth, in parentheses, matter, mortal mind, error, on parentheses, keep silent before him. And that was Habakkuk 2:20. And I'm so grateful for this lesson this week, and very grateful for this church. And Suzanne added some additional things too.
Hey, Suzanne, do you have yours?
Yeah, I do. I said I think we can make idols out of a million different things, anything really, that take us away from God, often by very subtle means, so we don't even realize it. It can be a job, a boss, a food, a hobby, an expert in any field, a problem the world is ruminating on, a sports team, a musician, a place, a store, even a pet, or any combination of things. Staying focused on God is the only way to see clearly and not be dumb. I've already paid enough of the dumb tax. Thank you. dwelling in the one mind, our Christ consciousness will keep us focused on what is right and true, giving all the glory to God. Then happy is he that hath the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in the Lord his God.
Thank you.
Very good.
So any comments on that, or how you've seen that work?
I just wanted to add about the dumb tax. I thought that was a really good thing she said. And then there was this other thing about, and we're paying dumb taxes on the wages of sin.
Yeah.
So we really, but it does. I like the way she said it. It comes in ways you don't even realize it. Then you have to really watch.
Sometimes it's emails. You know, we get emails daily where people want you to keep reading their human opinions, which Mrs. Eddy says are valueless. Or, you know, it's just so subtle. And then you're giving more thought to these other things than to God, because they seem so good and they seem so innocent and the people seem right, and you can really get swept away ever so subtly until something happens or you get your wake-up call.
Very good.
And we will always get a wake-up call eventually if we put our trust in something other than God. Well, it was a good list. Thank you.
Very good list.
And I'm sure that we could all think of other things to put on that list.
In Science and Health, Mrs. Eddy says there can be but one creator who has created all. Whatever seems to be a new creation is but the discovery of some distant idea of truth. Else it is a new multiplication or self-division of mortal thought, as when some finite sense peers from its cloister with amazement and attempts to pattern the infinite. I love that. You get such a picture of this creature peering out and seeing its own thought and then worshiping it, whatever that is. You project what's in your thought. That's why you have to keep your thought pure and with godlike thought. That's why we do all this studying and praying, so we know what that godlike thinking is. Otherwise, it will be a false god, and you will be sure to lose it or stumble on it. I shall have no other gods before me.
Because the serpent will come to you appearing as something that you will respect or enjoy or like.
Something justifiable for you to keep your thought on.
Will tell you that what God has told you is not true. So you can certainly think of a lot of others. Mrs. Evans used to pound those Ivy League diplomas that are, decorated in purple, and think, and that they think that they're really wonderful. They aren't. And that's what Paul was telling us in Romans yesterday, right? The Bible study. He had the highest degrees, education, knew the law inside and out. But once he realized Christ and what that was all about, he realized that all of his human education was worthless or worse.
That's where all this physical science, all this advanced thought, they start making a god out of their human mind and what they can figure out. And then all of a sudden it'll turn on them. So that was one thing Einstein did not want. He did not want it. He only wanted science to be used for Christian purposes. That's why he knew science had to be wedded with Christianity. He knew that. Because if it's not, you talk about the mad scientist. What happened in the first creation?
And made everything good and perfect.
Yes, and a spirit. And then what happened?
Then a mist went up.
The mist went up, obscuring the vision, clouding it. And then man began to think he was a personal creator. That's how it started. And then he began to worship what he created. And then because he thought he could create, he also thought he could destroy. And suddenly matter became a real entity to them. They were seeing their mortal mind thoughts projected. That's the Adam dream. That is what we all need to stay out of. And what did you write about on the forum, Jeremy?
Oh, about Christ Jesus healing the blind and the dumb man. And I just was thinking about that blindness and dumbness, how before coming here over the years, it just felt like, you know, the world was closing in basically, and everything was sort of fading to black. And I was thinking, you know, it's because I was turned away from God and I was looking at nothingness, and I didn't have anything to talk about. I didn't have anything to look at. It was a curiosity at the time why that was, but Christian Science makes it very clear why that.
Yes, and you see this human sense of matter is nothingness. Because there's no God in it, so it is nothingness.
And then there are people who look at this material so-called existence and get so disturbed and upset by it that they want to leave it. Which is where some people find themselves. And when they find themselves there, that is when they're receptive to the truth, willing to leave it all behind. But suicide is not an answer, but having reached the depths of despair with this mortal facade nonsense.
When I had found Christian Science for a number of years, but was not able to really practice it, what came into my experience was total fear. I was afraid of everything.
Yes, and that is in the watching point this week. Watching point number 112. Which, you want to don't not read it, but say briefly. You want to read it?
Well, it was really about that you become negative to whatever you fear and give power to harm you. And then that the battleground was within your own consciousness, and that you need to become positive through recognizing that you have power of God behind you. And, that you are to be have dominion, and assume your dominion as in your rightful place as a representative reflection of God. And that these negativity is the false mind. You know, and that we reverse this through the teaching of Christian Science.
Yeah. The more negative you become, the more all that negativity gets attracted to you. You just go deeper into it until you stop. You fight back with the truth, what you know about God. But once you crawl out of that hole, it's really much better to stay out of it. Don't go back in. It's no fun. I used to be always crawling out of that hole. Finally, I just got too tired of it. So don't go there. It's not the truth. You're investigating nothing. You think you're investigating something real or interesting. You know, all of these stuff, emails, all of this conspiracy theories, all these things that are going on. You're investigating the Adam dream. It's endless. You can read and read and read how horrible every aspect of this human life is, ad nauseum. Do not go there. It's not the truth of creation. If you want to read something enlightening. But some people are so focused on this, and then they think, well, we'll throw it to Mary or whoever, and they'll do the work, and it'll go away. Well, I don't need to go there in the first place. Nor does Florence.
Nor do any of us.
No, you are investigating mortal mind. Who wants to do that? Is there any answer in that? No. The conspiracies are endless. Everyone is evil. We're all out to get each other. We're greedy. We're horrible. We kill. How lovely. What a way to spend an afternoon. So,
I find
and
that
it is not the truth. Go ahead.
Yeah, I find that always when the thought is so immersed in what's going on in the world and how it can help in telling people about it and all that, there's always a physical claim too along with it. So again, why stay there? Come out of it, Mrs. Eddie's telling us. Come out of it and see what's true.
Come out and be separate. What we must do. We must come out from that world and be separate. And if you're too lazy or you just don't want to or you want to hobnob with all these people that are talking all this stuff, well, so be it. But that's your problem. Don't try to spread it around to everyone else.
And don't call yourself a Christian
And
Scientist when you do it.
Yes, because you are not. You are disobedient to God. You are believing in another creator, another existence, another God. You are not a Christian Scientist, so don't even think so.
And that's what they mean by going down into Egypt.
Yes.
Right. Trusting in chariots or in horsemen. And a good analogy today would be the trust in politicians or a government
Or a doctor.
Or a drug.
Or enough money.
Or they take these chemicals that are not wood or stone, but they paint them with something pretty and call it a pill and worship it.
Yeah, and then wonder why it doesn't work.
Or worse things happen.
Yeah, or worse things happen.
And act like God can't do anything and go away from him.
Yes, and get farther and farther away from God. God isn't the answer. And how silly for anyone who thinks he is.
Right.
So what is the answer? Do you want to summarize where we're going here?
That there's only one God.
And to have no other God, period.
Yeah, rise above the mortal nonsense. Rise above it. Don't get down in the muck and have an argument or try to deal with it on its own terms. You can't fix bad matter. You can't fix bad human circumstances. You can't fix a bad dream.
That's it, because it is a dream and a mesmerism. You're either out of the dream and knowing the truth, or you're in the dream and being part of the dream. The choice really is yours as a scientist. So stay out of that dream, the dream of mortal mind, matter, what this lesson was about this week. I thought it was interesting, too, in that story about the blind men. It said, and all the people were amazed and said, is not this the son of David? And Gary in his forum talked about having this human sense of Jesus. But also in the article True Vision by John Morgan, he says, which I always thought was interesting, in the Gospels, every case of healing of the blind is accompanied by a reference to thou son of David. David typified the wedding of manhood and womanhood, the outward seeing and the inner conception. So think about that and what that means. It's very fascinating, really. This spiritual activity of wedding the human and the divine, which is the key of David, that opens our vision. In truth, I am son or derived. Therefore, it is my heritage to enjoy God's vision. No mortal inheritance ever gave it to me or could deprive me of it. So, it's getting rid of any sense of inheritance and know that you only see because God sees. And it's that outward connecting with the inward.
Yeah. And at the time, their highest sense of relationship with God was David. That typified their highest sense. So when they said, "Thou art, art thou isn't this the son of David?" It was an exalted view of the human situation, giving it the highest concept. Son of David.
I want to read something to you from Watch's Prayers and Arguments, and then I want you to tell me what you think it means. This is on 183. Mrs. Eddy says, "Do not try to build up matter or make it comfortable and prosperous, but destroy matter with spirit. Then all these things shall be added, and in the right way. The latter is science." What does that mean? See, for every right sense of things, there's also the wrong sense. Got to make sure we stay in the right sense. So what is she saying? What do you think, Carol?
It's not in building up the body. It's not in building up a bank account. It's not in increasing your learning or any other such thing. It's in living. It's in being godlike. And then everything else falls in line, and everything else is right.
Good. Anybody else?
It's only
I
in
know
God.
I tried for a long time to make a really bad situation work before coming here. That's all I could think of. Is, I knew within a very short amount of time that I wasn't supposed to be there, but for some reason I kept working at it. And for 10 years I did it. And finally, it just about killed me. So that's just what I think of that. So,
That's a good example.
a way to make it
Great
better.
example. That really helps, because now I understand in the old model, the bogus Christian Science, that you were always trying to make bad situations cover over or better, and you weren't healing it or understanding the correctness of it. And that's why so many crazy relationships and health issues and stuff happened. It's because you were trying to build up or make matter better and cover it over. It really helps.
Yeah.
And I did that because I thought I was doing good by being loyal, but I was being loyal to the person.
Yeah.
See, there are all these sort of innuendos. There's these things you've got to make sure you see clearly.
Yeah, the idea of building up matter. Think of it. Where is your loyalty? What is your loyalty to? What
When
are
I
you
think
worshiping?
of building, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
What are you trusting in? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I think of building up matter, that is what I think of, is just making an excuse for why I'm putting something before God.
Good one.
Right.
It also is why, just because you see a prosperous Christian scientist doesn't necessarily mean that he's practicing the science. Not if he's just building up matter.
Prosperous in a financial sense,
Yes, in a financial sense.
or in an appearance sense.
Yes.
How much of the riches of spirit you have, that's the real wealth.
Yeah, because that's the only thing you take with you, isn't it?
The only thing that will help you when you awaken.
It is
My
true.
associ-
live this life, everything will be added unto you, because that's the promise. That's what the Bible says. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, in my association, people were incredibly wealthy by my standard, and the spirit sure was not there.
Yeah. It's usually very obvious. It also, when it's just the building up of matter, there's no joy, there's no contentment. There's just rivalry and greed and jealousy and misery, usually sickness.
And dissatisfaction, because there's also always the desire to have more of the material.
Yeah.
And if people really are trusting in it, you know, and it's easy to fall into that trap, to think, oh, you know, my crop is so good, I need to tear down my barn and build a bigger barn, right? That's a too. So, yeah. So then, you know, if you start trusting in it, then the fear comes that someone will take it from you.
Thought that came to mind was the phrase that if you get terror comes to you for life and you give it the only life it has, and that's part of what building up matter is giving error life.
Yeah. Building up matter, sure. Making it all the more real and important.
Yeah.
In the realm of spirit, where we're seeing everything as spiritual, using our spiritual sense and seeing God in all things, there's never any limit. You know, say for instance the number 4. It's a concept. Is that ever limited? I mean, can Linda only have 10 4s while Carol has 60?
No, I mean, it's being used everywhere too, so it's endless, infinite. Every idea is infinite because it's everywhere.
Mary used to like to use the word innumerable. Unending. And so it is in the realm of spirit. You can never lack. You can never think you have less than someone else, or someone is more blessed than you are. God is infinite in his blessing. You just have a limited concept of him. How to change your thought. See it that way. True of all things. Everything stands for an idea. All things stand for ideas. They are limitless, innumerable.
Use the idea of mathematics, equating it to the divine principle, because it's infinite. And I have a 7, and I'll tell you my 7. But that doesn't work. You have 7. We all have 7. And, you know, the idea of practicing your tennis shot, the idea of practicing your multiplication table, you can't really work the math. Don't play tennis until you really practice. And that's why I guess as kids we're all taught our multiplication table. Then you can really work out the problems in math.
Right.
Right. And as scientists, we have a textbook. And we refer to it regularly if we are serious about it. And we practice it every day. We put into practice every day what we study, what we learn. God gives us opportunities to grow if we want to grow.
And what is in that textbook is just, there's no end to it. Mrs. Eddy knew that and said that. I mean, I'm reading it again, and what I get out of it every time, if you really get into it and think about what it is saying, take notes, look up words, think about it. Sometimes I read, and then when I'm done reading, I listen to Florence. I listen to the audio. It's soak it up. This is what to do rather than reading emails about how horrible the world is.
This makes it seem so absurd then why a board can control it if they're concepts or charge money for it. This is really...
Well, Mrs. Eddy tells us about that, right? The human mind tries to mimic the divine and create its own misconceptions about what it is. Yeah, I mean, the book is English, the finest English there is, words, but behind those words are spiritual ideas. And if you open your thought to the spiritual ideas, every time you read the book, you will get something new out of it, guaranteed. If you're not getting something new out of the book every time you read it, then your thought is closed to God. And wake yourself up. And if someone in the human mind reads it, they're not going to get anything out of it. They're going to think that it needs to be rewritten because it's,
or explained.
English.
Yeah.
Too old English.
Yeah. So, not the book's fault if people don't get something from it or get healed by it. That's why we read from Fruitage every Sunday.
I always think of how Benjamin, in Nigeria, read it, and it just rocked his world. Yes, and in a foreign language. I mean, I just think of that. So people would say, well, they don't get it. It shows, as Gary just said, they're in the human mind. You've got to rouse yourself, get into it more.
They wouldn't get it even if it was in plain, quote, English.
They would not. They would not believe the healings that take place. They wouldn't see it. They would doubt it. Many people commented on how much they liked that watch on Thursday, which was devoted to gratitude. You keep that watch and you work with it. You let it change you. You let it rake over your thoughts so that you are really, really grateful, as the message said, not just the cursory thank you, but deeply grateful. Carol just came up with that. It was beautiful. Something.
The other factor is that when we listen to somebody that we think is an expert, in my case, people in the first church of Christian Science that I joined, or if one thinks that the people at the mother church know what they're talking about, and even if one thinks one has the right concept and is told that it's the wrong one, you come to Plainfield and find out 10 years later that it was the right concept, but you kind of got talked out of it. So that's kind of the trap I fell into.
That's why you learn to trust your spiritual sense and not what other people say. And that's true of here and anywhere. You gauge on how you feel. Your spiritual sense will guide you aright. You have that inner voice telling you.
And that's why Mrs. Eddy told her household, follow me only insofar as I follow the Christ.
Yes, she could say it.
And if she could say that, well. So I would ask everyone, think about what's in your life. Is there anything in your life that you can't do without? Anything that if it were taken from you, you would be absolutely distraught. If there is anything in your life that would just ruin you if it were taken from you, think about it. What are you making a God out of?
Are you seeing the source of good in person, place, or thing rather than in God? Because when you see it in God, you know you can never lose it. You can never lose God. That's the problem. You've focused on the material thing rather than the spiritual idea behind it.
But if you're willing to do without anything, literally anything, if it were God's will, if you're willing to do without, then you won't ever have to do without anything that's good.
It's so wonderful to know that substance is spirit.
It's up to us to prove it.
To understand that is wonderful.
We're going to close with Martha Wilcox's scientific translation. This always gives us a better idea of matter.
Martha Wilcox. The spiritual ideas that God gives us and their translated daily supplies are a unit, indivisible and inseparable. As one gains the more glorified concept of substance and its accessibility, things will be seen in their finer and more etherealized form, quality, and beauty. Let us accept the fact that reality is present in the very place where we stand. Reality is the divine substance or truth within us, or is our state of consciousness which we may utilize to fill our every need. It is right for us to translate these divine ideas or spiritual facts into concrete, visible forms and bring them to human sight and sense. Not a single blade of grass or leaf or a flower is material when viewed correctly. It is spirit, mind, which conceives, outlines, and forms these ideas, which multiply and replenish the earth. Mrs. Eddy says, Science and Health, page 191, quote, "By its own volition, not a blade of grass springs up, not a spray buds within the veil, not a leaf unfolds its fair outlines, not a flower starts from its cloistered cell." End quote. All natural beauty and grandeur, from the freshness of the morning to the calm of the evening and the starry heavens at night, are the presence of the one Spirit, and are therefore spiritual. All natural activities, such as eating and walking and resting and hearing and seeing and thinking and feeling, are not in nor of matter, but are the conscious functionings of the one Spirit, and are therefore spiritual. All natural love and affection and gladness and happiness and joy and peace and harmony are not in nor of person, but are the one conscious life or spirit in being, and are therefore spiritual and unceasing. All things pertaining to and essential to our normal state of living, from a pin to a palace, when rightly viewed, are not matter, but are spiritual ideas at hand.
That's what we dwell on. There's plenty of wonderful good to do so. Okay, we'll go forward.
Could you tell the reference for that?
It's Scientific Translations by Martha Wilcox.
In her book, Addresses by Martha Wilcox, which we published.
Okay, we will go forward and have a wonderful service with God's power and presence. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great session.